Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to work on the second recipe of the meal prep series, Week of a Simple Menu. This is the recipe for the red potato salad. Not a lot of ingredients, but lots of flavor, and it's very versatile. You want to make sure that they're really clean. And when you cut them up, you want to make sure that you try to keep them as close to the same size as possible. By doing this, you ensure that they all get done at the same time, they all cook evenly, and there won't be any that will be too hard or too mushy. By cutting them up, you're also able to find if there's any bad spots in any of the potatoes, and you can just cut them right out. And then that way you'll make sure that you also have enough to make sure that your recipe works out evenly. Once they're all cut up, we want to cover them with some nice cold water and put them on to boil, high heat on your burner. You can fill your pot with the water about an inch and a half above the level of the potatoes. And you're going to bring those to a boil, and they're going to boil until they are fork tender. You'll also want to add some salt to the water, about a half a tablespoon, a good amount. Start with the onions first. I like the pieces to be on the bigger side. It adds a nice texture to the salad. Okay, once our onions are done, we're going to start with our fresh herbs. We start with the parsley. Okay, once we get the parsley cut up, we will get the basil cut up. This is so nice. You don't need a whole lot of herbs to make this nice and fresh. It gives it a really, really nice flavor. And if you need to buy them in the supermarket, it's nice because you don't need a whole lot of them. Okay, now, if for some reason you don't like basil, you don't like parsley, and you want to use something else, that's quite all right. Fresh dill would be good in this. Some tarragon if you like tarragon. And then we're going to move on to the jalapeno pepper. And that is completely up to you. If you want to put a regular green pepper in there, that's fine too. It's just I thought I'd put a little spin on it and do something different. So I'm going to use the jalapeno pepper. I am going to take the ribs and the seeds out of the pepper. I don't want them really hot. I just want to get that nice pepper flavor. If you would like to eliminate the pepper altogether, that's fine. You could put some celery in there. That would give it a nice crunch. But I like the jalapeno peppers. Had them in the fridge. Didn't want them to go to waste. Okay, now just like the parsley and the basil, we don't want these pieces really big. I'd say about like 1/8 of an inch square piece would be the right size. You just want the flavor in there. You don't want them to overpower anything. You want everything to meld together nicely and just have a hint of that pepper flavor in there. You can also use a bell pepper if you want, the colored peppers. This is a very forgiving recipe. You can switch it up however you'd like. Okay, once we get everything cut up in the bowl, and the good part starts. Now, the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of oil and 3/4 of a cup of vinegar. And you want to put these in at different times in different amounts. So we're going to start with 1/4 of a cup of vinegar in with the veggies. Then we're going to get the salt and pepper in there, which you want to put the majority of the pepper in now and less salt in now. So like 1/2 teaspoon of your salt can go in here. You want to put 1/2 cup of your oil in here. What it ends up to be is you want your hot potatoes, when you put those in, you want them to get a burst of flavor. And by putting more vinegar on those at that point and more salt, they're gonna suck up all that flavor, and that's where you want it. You don't want all the salt in your dressing. You want them more on the potatoes. So we're going to give this a stir here. And make sure it's mixed up really well. And when your potatoes are done, you're going to drain those off. And you want them, it's called fork tender. So if you take a fork or a knife and you poke them, and it just goes in with no resistance. You don't want them mushy because then it breaks up and it just doesn't have a nice texture then. So if they need to cook a little bit longer, let them cook until they're right where you want them, right at fork tender. Once the potatoes are done, what you want to do is you want to drain them in your colander, and you want to let them drip and get most of the water off of it. You want them to dry a little bit before you put them in your bowl with your other veggies. And here's where we're going to put the rest of our vinegar on. Now it should be about a half a cup of vinegar that you're going to pour over the potatoes. Like I said, it's going to absorb them, and the rest of the olive oil can go in, and then you can add the rest of your salt and more pepper if you'd like. That's up to you. Next, you want to give it a good toss. You want to make sure that it's coated in the dressing and everything is evenly distributed. And then you want to let it set for a while before you eat it. About an hour is good. Then the potatoes have a chance to soak up all the dressing and all that good flavor. You can serve this warm or cold. You can heat it up with the grilled sausage and peppers if you want. You can serve it with bacon and an egg, or you can have it cold with some tuna fish. I like to store it in a glass container in the refrigerator. It does last quite a while if you can keep it in the house. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this recipe, and I hope you give it a try. Let me know how you decide to use it. For more details and a copy of the recipe, check me out on Patreon at Braisingly Beau.